Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 21st episode of our first run through Book of Hours for YouTube VODs. And while it's not been that long since I recorded the last video, I did start recording this video and went a bit longer than I would like to admit in my Twitch playthrough. So I have a feeling that I'm going to be a little bit of a featherhead for the next 30 minutes or so. But I have been looking forward to returning to this playthrough because I feel like I wound up in a couple of interesting spots, just in terms of the number of books and a few plans that I'd like to put together. Unfortunately, I am a little bit lost in terms of what my overall plans were. So we've got Wrapped in the King, which we are grabbing an Earth sign from. Now that could be to try and read a scale book, but I don't see any of those immediately available. We have Fusine, right? No, we do not. We have Henevek and Kilisimi. Okay. So yes, it appears... Okay, so there's a couple possibilities that I'm seeing here. We're getting close to the end of spring. Now, it's worth remembering that as far as spring is concerned, this is the time when we would maybe want to use somebody to clear out scale. I don't really think that's a factor for us at this point. There is a scale area, but it's not one that I would, there's a number of different ways that we can overcome that, so it's not something I'm too focused on right now. Okay, yeah, so other than boosting Mrs. Kill to access the Darkened Church, I think we roughly know what we're about as far as opening various rooms are concerned. I think I wound up talking a bit about the instruments at the end of the last one, so... and I've got... Okay, so I've got a skill committed towards something, and that makes sense to me because I probably want to get the memories out of it, but if I don't see it in front of me, then I get a little nervous. I mean, there is also the possibility that I've just put my... Oh, hang on. Yes, here we go. Okay, so we're reading Deoris Book 2 because of the rain with the nectar. Right, and then I think what we were doing is we were going to wait to see what the skill was so that I could learn it. All right, I think I'm back to where I need to be. I do need to work out a better filing system. One, for the books that I've already read, but also for just ones that I'll work on. It's a little disorganized here, but I think I'll probably make that a dedicated project later on in the broadcast. Okay, so we are reading Deoris Book 1, an occasionally coherent catalog of secret gods organized by hour. This is a reprint, but in the original Latin. This volume deals with the hours of the wood, the moth, the black flax, the ringyu, among others. I suppose I could have gotten Mrs. Kill with this Arab, but I suspect the reasoning for not doing so was so I had the options in terms of learning, and then we'd immediately go to cataloging once we knew what we were up against. I do also have the option of just reading another book later in the day. We probably wouldn't be able to do much in the evening, but we'll see. We'll see where we're at by the end. I seem to recall something about wanting to do Fekri's Herbery. The glory is a question, and the moth always answers yes. Okay, so that gives us an impulse, and writes the roots. So this is a nice one for us because that allows us to start stocking up on plants. Now that's going to mean that my health sort of gets knocked down as a possible action to take, but I definitely feel like using. I'm sorry, I'm a little unfocused, but I definitely feel like getting some ingredients in order to be able to, to sort of build up some of the tools that will become useful for exploring more of the house is the right call. So a really good example here would be one drink that I made a lot of use of in the YouTube playthrough would be Solomon's Preparation. And you get that through flowers. Now there's an equivalent to that called Rubywise Ruin. You do get a hint at a few of these items. So the Sacrament Malachite is actually a very high-powered drink. This is one that I haven't been able to make yet, but Serpent Milk would be another example of this. So if you take a look, some of these beverages can be very powerful in terms of boosting up your aspects. And it can be hard sometimes when you're, just learning the game. I have a feeling that probably they wanted to put some of the items like that, one, to let you know where what you can do in the game, but also they didn't want to make them so close to the start that you'd be in danger of, you wouldn't want to be in danger of, like, using them for something maybe a little more trivial. So what I'm really talking about here would be, finding a glass of water in the observatory. This is still fairly powerful, so this is water that you would wind up getting from Numa, so it's not something that you would use casually if you had an alternative. But in the end, 2 knock and 2 moon is something that you can get through other means, and most of the challenges that you're going to be facing in this part of the house don't require you to sort of make use of every single upgrade that you can give to someone. So if you wind up drinking the special water a little bit early, then that's fine. You don't sacrifice that much. Whereas the Serpent Milk, I don't want to go too far in terms of some of the things that will be coming up later, but the recipe that you use to make this, it requires 15 of the aspect, and in fact you need to read quite carefully to learn how to make it. If you go, well, I mean that, or you kind of need to set up a good analysis regimen to sort of figure out how to make the keeper level ones, because they don't give you hints in the process of crafting. What you do get are sort of hints when you make the necessary ingredients often. But anyways, I'm going on a little longer than I wanted on this, but essentially the idea is that around this point I kind of feel like you think, okay, well, I'm not going to drink, the 6 edge boost. I mean, essentially this is what's required for some of the challenges up to, let's say, around this line, even a little carve out around here. And so hopefully by this point you'll sort of have realized, okay, well, I can give these things to assistants, so something that has the power of some of my initial, like, I think this garden would be opened, easily opened with the Serpent Milk. I think there might be a couple of other ones before. But yeah, hopefully this is the sort of thing that you don't use to recover your elements of the soul in bed. Although for those, I did got an interesting question in terms of how you get tea. The only way that I've really been able to find tea other than unlocking new rooms is occasionally it'll wash up on Crowcross Sands, clearly a leftover from a certain event in Boston. But in general, that's one of the ones that I haven't been able to work out. But the game does give you equivalents. So, like if you're looking for the Grail and you're out of Domain Reveline, well, you can make a Witching Tisane and you're in the same boat. So it's not that you get lost, although sometimes you can make life a little more difficult for you just by needing to repair certain gaps in your inventory. Anyways, I like the gardening because for a few of the items that I found quite powerful, I do tend to make them using flowers. And it's not even necessarily because the flowers are a necessary ingredient, although that is true sometimes. I don't actually need to be sitting and waiting. I can read the level 6 book. In fact, I probably create a little bit of a problem for myself here. Okay, so Fekri's Herbery. Well, I would need to use the earth sign. Yeah, so I do actually need to use the consider verb again. No, I can't, because I need the Okay. Yeah, so I don't have heart at that desk. I may have a problem. Yeah. So I think the best I can hope for in this case is just to get lucky. That's a little bit of a shame. Yeah, so the problem with Natan's desk is that the earth sign has nectar and scale, so I couldn't use it at Natan's desk. The problem with the pale desk is that it takes scale, but it doesn't take heart, which eliminates drums and dances. So I suppose the question is, what do I expect from Rites of the Roots? Yeah, and the challenge here is that Natan's desk doesn't... It's good with moth, but it's in the same way that it would be good with drums and dances, so we're back to the same problem here, unless Solomon's desk were to somehow accept moth. I'm stuck. And then in terms of things that accept... Yeah, so this is the only one that'll accept scale for me right now. So the desk I'm really looking for is up here, one of the old abbesses. But we're looking to make progress now. So there's two things that I'll consider. So number one, I will... Actually, the funny thing is that this would have been a good time, instead of using the Grail weather, I should have used it as the input to the chant. But that's fine. I'll work with what I've been given. So let's improve our chances as they are now. So I can't do drums and... Right. Well, okay, so if I put the earth sign in, and then I add the... there's no real difference, but this does allow me to add the cake bowls. All right, this was a bit of a blunder, but I'll sort it out. So we're at 4. We need... Ooh. I don't have a way of getting the skill back in, so I think I'm actually going to wait for the consider verb to become available. This is a nice little subtle thing. I don't think I've ever pointed it out before in the game, but it's something that I've liked since playing it earlier on. You have the idea of reading a book. So, the oldest hours are the gods from blood who rose from sacrifice. That blood, it was always spilt on the roots, and the rites of its spilling are still remembered. Also, I don't know why I said this was particularly special for collecting flowers, because obviously drums and dances can, but anyways. But yeah, so one thing that I like that is just sort of subtly about the desk is that I do occasionally like to read books while walking. Now, obviously, I prefer not to be in like high traffic areas, but you know, there's actually also a very weird little double standard. So, you know, if you're looking at a phone and walking, generally I mean, it kind of depends on who you're with and whether or not you're running into busybodies, but like that's a bad thing, right? Oh, you know, you don't know where you're looking and things like that. I've never come close to bumping into someone while looking at the phone, just generally. I mean, maybe this is from training for the phone, but I have had people who are talking, being distracted and run into me when I'm not looking at my phone. So, but what I do notice is that there isn't the same sort of side-eye that comes from reading and walking, despite the fact that it's actually probably more distracting. I don't quite know. I mean, I guess there's a respect for reading, or maybe I'm too distracted to notice. Who knows? But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But the idea here is that there's lots of different ways that you can read, and then of course there's also casual reading as opposed to sort of sitting down and really like really getting in depth with a given work. And obviously in the world of Cultist Simulator and Book of Hours, you have characters who are reading texts which are not just a bathroom read. Like you're really trying to tease apart something very complicated and not necessarily written in clear language. And there is a subtle distinction between the two types. So for instance, if I use my consider verb, in this case we will use we'll use Fec Reservery. So the soul's labors, some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, some few to be chewed and digested. Bacon. Studying requires effort. You will always need a suitable soul card first. So, we'll be adding our health. This is probably the combination that I'm going to do, by the way. And then we can add the memory. In this case, the earth sign makes sense. So this brings us up to 5 in terms of nectar. But we don't have the other slots in order to augment our ability to read. And what I kind of like about this is I get the feeling that this is the recognition that it is possible to just sit and read a book. And in fact, if you sit and read a book, it is not that you are not appreciating the book. You are actually quite capable of sitting down. So if you had, even a math textbook, if that happened to be your thing, if you were to just sit down and casually go through it, it is possible, based on the understanding you have, based on what you're bringing to it, you may get everything that book is meaning to convey to you. But if you really want to sit down, let's say you have a test coming up with that same book, perhaps what you want is a dedicated study space. And when you have that dedicated study space, all of a sudden, you have the ability to bring in tools. In this case, an instrument or an ink. Both of those things can help you in terms of reading and gain an understanding. So I like this because, well, number one, I do actually like the idea of places. I have wound up going into coffee shops, or I've wound up going to specific places, not because I don't like doing things at home, but because I find some value in going out. It's almost like going to work, right? If I want to get some writing done, and I go out to a particular cafe or a nice place outside, wherever I'm feeling it at the time. A nectar place as opposed to a moth or a lantern place. I kind of feel that this is the game recognizing that tendency. Again, I'm spending a lot of words on something that's quite simple to describe. I think most people have probably had some kind of an experience like that. Now, obviously, it's a bit of a frustration for me in the game right now because I want to bring together a particular combination and I'm being denied. I shouldn't actually say frustration because that implies a stronger feeling than I actually have. But yeah, in this case here, it's something that I kind of respect about the game in the sense that it's not a huge difference, right? It's not the idea, you don't want to be the sort of person who, buys a massively overpowered computer so that you can play pixel art indie, right? You don't need the latest NVIDIA GPU to be able to play a pixel art game. And yet, so likewise, you don't need to buy this very Baroque desk to write your masterwork or to study, or to sit down and enjoy some young adult novels, let's say. But being able to just sort of being able to recognize where you are or how focused you are on the task has an effect in terms of how you read the book. I think, number one, if you like having a little story going on in the back of your head, it helps that. So, the idea of whether or not the librarian is, distracted, or also, just this idea where you feel like you have the pieces that you need to solve a puzzle, but you haven't quite been able to put them together yet. That could be what's going on by the fact that we're looking for this desk that we don't yet have access to. But however you like to work it out, I do feel like it adds a little something. Okay, so this is a shame. We don't have the extra soul. And then Epiphany. So I don't think Epiphany gives us nectar, which means that we're short on our outcome, which is fine. This is something that was a possibility. So I'm going to prep for tomorrow. As it turns out, the weather wouldn't have helped us anyway, but I'm going to read Wrapped in the King again so that I can have a nectar ready for tomorrow. I've already used my health for the text. If I would like, I can do some garden. Actually, I still think gardening's a good idea. So we've got moth orchids in spring and summer, honey scar jasmine in autumn, cat's claw in spring, trumpeter's lily in summer. Rarer plants might flourish in Numa. Let's go for the moth orchid for a start. Moth orchid is as soft as velvet to the touch, except when it changes. And then as a final act, we will catalog a book. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Curia period, roughly the 1700s to 1800s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. Alright, an element of the soul. Increase relevant aspects by adding an element of the soul card. Now, just to be clear, I probably could get this quite simply by committing a skill to the Tree of Wisdoms. But generally, I'm not crazy about, making a permanent commitment in order to solve a temporary problem. It shouldn't be that hard for me to be able to read that book again in the future. The Radical Measure, a manifesto for experimental and dangerous sounding invocatory poetry, written sometime in the 19th century by Dr. Aaron Peel, a notoriously inconsistent and incoherent text apparently produced in a tearing hurry. Sounds like my writing. What do I do about this one? Because we're getting full up in the rather difficult pile. We could, of course, move the papers or the mirror scope, but that's just pushing the problem down the road. I wonder, can we put 2 of these on the shelf? Haha! The day is mine. It was for the man of letters to record these epiphanies with extreme care, seeing that they themselves are the most delicate and evanescent of moments. The mysteries have defeated me for now. You can always try again later. Okay, so we've got our earth sign from Wrapped in the King. We've got a hindsight for our trouble, and fortunately we did not lose. So it is possible to be afflicted by a failed reading, but in this case we got through it. I'm just going to take a quick second to navigate the house for a little bit. So I'm mostly interested in, here we go, the true moth, the flower that opens as it changes. So I do need to find a place to store these. Christopher's Nook may wind up being the location, but I'd rather not. I don't think I could put these on the ground here. Yeah, so I think I am going to have to settle for Christopher's Nook. So that's a 2 knock, 1 moth, 1 nectar. It's a thing and it's a flower. It would have been nice to get some cat's claw as well, but I didn't want to go back to the sweet bones to renew for that. Right, memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. So, are we in summer now? Yep. What's happening in the world beyond Brandkrug? What visitors will the season bring? We have the affair of the forgivable debt again. We will read that in a minute, and it's a sunny day. So, I think we are still going to go for the nectar, the nectar reading that we attempted before. I may want to generate a nectar memory off the top, though. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a shame that I have to do that, but I still think it's the right call. So what I'm going to do here, this is a chance for me to just maybe double check that I've gotten certain details right. So the expectation here is that this gave me an impulse, this gave me an impulse, so I would expect that both these 2 texts will. So I'm going to start with On Thirstly's Ivories and Lovelies. Fiona Ayrshire recounts her visits in dreams to the Red Church and the Mansus, and her conversations with the names of the Grail. So this is one which, from its description, you would think would be maybe more of a, maybe more of a satisfaction or a, or gossip, maybe something that has Grail aspect. But in this case, I'm testing the filing system. So if it does turn out, then I'll accept it. And the likelihood is that true and complete accounting of the Asclepian mysteries of the roots of the house will, I just put a higher probability of that being the right one. And if it doesn't turn out that way, well, I can reevaluate. I can move this somewhere else into the piles, and then that's just a disappointment that I don't need to deal with later. Okay, so let's carry on with the day for now. I do need to decide whether or not Mrs. Kill is a good choice in terms of work. It's a lot of this is going to depend on what happens during the day. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to go... I'm going to catalog. I'm still going to go one at a time, but I don't feel like waiting for everything. So we're going to put the FET into cataloging first. So our main goal is still to read Fekri's Herbery. That may not be the wisest choice. A Book of the Centipede feels like it's a little more... Oh, this is another chance to learn language. Is there someone en route to Hush House? Miss Azita Bukhara. Businesswoman, chess master, initiate of the Scarred Hour, sometimes called the Colonel. Now, the thing is, I don't really need these languages right now, but I'm taking a slightly different approach here. This is mostly, I felt okay about the fact that I missed the first few, so I don't feel the same need to interfere with this matter as much as the others. So, hello, librarian. I have questions. I'll pay for answers. So in this case, this is just a chance for me to earn some extra languages a bit quicker than I have in my own playthrough. I do kind of like the idea of helping people out with the Affair of the Forgivable Debt, but not to the point where I set aside certain tasks. So my visitor can teach me the rudiments of this resonant language. Okay. And this was indeed an impulse. So an hour, Ayrshire explains, may usually only have 7 names, but since the Thursleys, Ivories, and Lovelies, who usually comprise the Red Grail's names, are constantly attempting to devour one another and the names of other hours, that number fluctuates. Lovelies, the freshest of the Grail's names, usually adopt the characteristics of whatever they devour, be it an Ivory, a Thirstly, or occasionally an entirely different kind of name. A practical application of the principle is described. The arts of resurgences and emergences in the presence of sufficiently potent Grail aspect can be used to field a pale Mommet to its successor doll, creating something notably more avid. Alright, so we're ready to read the Nectar text now. And like I said, that's a very strong indication that the true and complete accounting of the Asclepian mysteries of the roots of the house is what we think it is. Perhaps. Alright, the collected Hush House lectures. In the 1800s, Dr. Aaron Peel was invited to give a series of lectures to the Curia. They combine his pithy view of the histories with his particular brand of unhelpfully ironical insight. So this is a good one for us. I just want to double check. So we have the one moon from the Tryst, but Desires and Dissolutions, basically, it means we have this in the bag. So I can read this. In fact, I can probably read this right now at Ava's desk, and I'll call it a day. Well, I won't call it a day, but yeah. Let's, in fact, on top of this, I'm going to use the Arab. No, I'm not, because I may need the Arab for improving a skill. So I will use the Tryst after all. So, Moon a culmination. I can master this mystery. And I think I will catalog another book. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Curia period, roughly the 1700s to the 1800s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. Alright, now I have an idea of this book's nature and its content. So this is another Ramson text. I felt like I had a spot for those. Alright, I think... See, these are all occupied with books I've read. So the thing that worries me about placing it up here is it's easier for me to forget. Okay, so what I will do... So the Wound Wounds is a Killisimi text, which I can read, so I kind of want to put that in a different area. Once upon a time, this did contain the lowest aspect, or lowest number of the different aspects that I wanted to read. That's probably still mostly true, but I definitely don't catalog books that way anymore. But yeah, all of these are readable to me. Which feels like the Wound Wounds should be in this room as well. Okay, that's a tolerable... Actually, here's... Yeah, no, I can tolerate that for now. Alright, now I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. You can notice that I've been sort of leaving the sun aside. It may have been a better idea for me to try like a lantern text with this. The catch is that I think most of the lantern texts that I have are pretty advanced. So, you know, like 12 lantern is not, the sun is not going to be changing that. Everything else is sort of, like the level 6 texts are ones that I probably should be able to read, but I haven't yet committed the relevant element of the soul, so I sort of accept that those aren't turning out. But yeah, I'm reasonably okay with where we're at. So I know we're at the 30 minute mark. We should be in a good spot for future episodes, but what are we looking at here? So extra effort soul, but that's fine. We knew that we were going to be putting the heart in. Relevant furniture. Now, okay, but the thing will help. So the thing will let me put in the cake bowl. So we've got this as long as I keep an eye on it. There's still a chance. Alright, so I'm going to take a quick... Oh no, we do have the garden chairs, I forgot. So stretch my legs and change my point of view. I always like to take the earliest opportunity here because I can see situations in which I don't give it what it needs, or like I make a bad assumption, and you don't want to blow a perfectly good opportunity. You know, just on trying to be too clever. Okay, Fekri's Herbery. The early wisdom of Isen Fekri. At that point, a traveling healer, and much later Secretary Salvant of the Curia of the Isle. As a Skaptodon, Isen may consume only that which is found in the earth, so he's best with root lore. Okay, so that kind of gives us a hint in terms of what's coming up. We've already used the Tryst. Isen identifies a pale seaweed found on the beaches of Cornwall as a useful source of rose and winter aspect. His tone here is a little guilty, perhaps because he's showing an interest in sea produce, which might be thought unwise for a Skaptodon, and perhaps because his proposal to name it Ava's Locks suggests a tiny crush on the pale lady of Brandkrug. I always like that little detail. Okay, so we get a satisfaction out of that. Now, unfortunately, I don't recall if we get satisfaction out of any of these other books, so I'm going to put this one off to the side. So one thing that's nice about books that you sort of remember the aspect for, or the memory for, they can serve as a good anchor. So for instance, I remember Traveling at Night Volume 1 gives me impulse. Thackeray's Herbery gives satisfaction. And so every book that is beside Thackeray's Herbery in future will probably wind up giving me, I'll say, okay, this is most likely to give me satisfaction. And my hope is to sort of develop that for everything. So I'm thinking here these are probably confounding parables and that these are intuitions. Ava's Treasury, 6 Letters on Necessity. I forget these, although I clearly put them beside each other. The Perugian Diaries, I that was because it was music, but it would probably be better put close to these ones here. But yeah, just, this is a different style of cataloging that I'm trying to do for this series, and it's particularly interesting because I don't have that immediate memory of, playing the game directly before, whereas, basically just because I'm jumping between the two different episodes. But it's a fun challenge, so. Oh, I was wrong. So Herbs and Infusions. I really thought it was going to be Rites of the Roots. All right, so I've gained more understanding of Herbs and Infusions. So apparently, well, we know why we're getting all the nectar stuff now. It's because one nectar skill is, started to topple the dominoes. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill. So we may still be getting more skills from, well, we will be getting a new skill. It may wind up being an upgrade for us. But in this case, I think I'm going to use the core. Actually, I'm going to use the core for gardening. So let's take a look at my options here. So moth orchids in spring and summer, honey scar jasmine in autumn. Okay, that was a little bit of a shame that I didn't go for the cat's claw then. But trumpeter's lily turns out to be incredibly useful. So let's take our rights to the roots. Gather in summer. In summer, trumpeter's lily flourishes like a shout. And you know what? I know I'm getting almost to the 10-minute mark over, so we will finish reading the collected Hush House lectures on Wednesday's episode, and then I can regroup and sort of figure out where everything is. So thank you everybody for watching. And again, I know I'm scattered on the Mondays, but it's... I mean, the alternative is that I spend some time sitting down researching everything before the start, and that probably would just mean that I have to knock a day off of the recordings. The last couple of weeks it's been a little tricky to get everything in on time, but I am of course very grateful that I have the chance to do this, and I am grateful that after, Book of Hours is still a new thing, but it's not the new thing anymore. So there are a few of you who have obviously stuck around, and I do appreciate that tremendously. So I hope you are all well. I hope you have a good day, whatever part of the day it is for you. And we will not have an episode tomorrow on Tuesday, but one of the YouTube episodes should be coming online. Actually, it may not be. I think there was a copyright claim that got released from something, so it might be out last. But I will be back Wednesday with another episode of this particular series, and I hope to see you there. Take care.